Okay. Welcome to this special hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for July 9th, 2024. So I hereby call this meeting to order. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous people. So welcome to the hearing. As I mentioned, this is a special hearing, so we have one application to focus on, consisting of some severances and associated minor variances. There are two major types of applications in this committee, which are, in fact, consents to sever and minor variances. Evidence may be required to be given under oath. If deemed necessary, please address your comments and questions through the chair. Copies of the decision will be mailed to the applicant and any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive notice of decision. Pursuant to the More Homes Built Faster Act, there really should be a better name for that. And in the matter of consent applications, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the decision. Minor variances decisions may also be appealed. However, they must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, and the cost of an appeal is $400. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda this evening?
There are no amendments or additions to the agenda, no.
May we have a motion to approve the agenda? Jamal, thank you. May we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting? They were not circulated.
The minutes won't be circulated till the next hearing.
Next meeting, great, thank you. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in any of the application to be considered at this hearing or any previous hearing? If they were in attendance, no. I'm seeing no for everybody, me included. I know that there are no requests for withdrawal or adjournment. We are here with a full contingent of our volunteer Committee of Adjustment members, and we have staff planning available to facilitate the hearing, and we have the applicant for Ellis Avenue sitting here, who I would like to have you state your name and address, and please contribute to the conversation about your application. I'm sorry to interrupt. We might be having a technical difficulty. Could you try using another microphone and just see if that is, because I don't think your voice is being picked up by Rosa. How about a testing 1 2 3? We'll see if that helps solve the problem. Sorry I know you're just getting started at there. So we can hear the proceedings. Is we okay to proceed?
Well, I'll just try and
move them around the. I think this is for the people joining us via YouTube, the crowd, the masses. I mean, so shall we proceed? Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption again. You introduced yourself, you're getting ready to tell us about this exciting project on a former landfill.
There we go, we're red now. In addition, there will be a pedestrian walkway that connects the site east and west, and also a pedestrian walkway that will head to the east to the commercial areas to the east. That will also help community connectivity. People in the past have crossed through this property and over the railway track, so now they'll have actually a paved walkway to get safely to the east. The site also has its own private park that will be part of a condominium. There will be improvements to the existing park. There's been some disturbance to the park through the construction, but it'll be rebuilt, additional trees planted, and the pedestrian walkway that was there will be improved. We estimated that the property will probably generate around $2 million in tax revenue to the city once it's completed. It also adds to the housing mix within the community. So it is quite a good news story on a piece of property that was abandoned and contaminated and basically left. So to implement this plan, in addition to the plan of subdivision, we also need site plan approval, which we have started, and that is in process as well. Through the site plan process, we found that the proposal generally complies to the bylaw. It's a residential use, and the residential use we're proposing complies. But because, as you see from the plan, it's such an odd shape, and in fact, there are two different properties that are involved in the application. So once we overlaid the plan on the site, we found that there are a few pinch points, places where maybe the building doesn't line up properly or in parallel with a lot line. So we need to pick up some variances. I wasn't planning to go through all of them now. They're in the report. We could talk about them if we need to. But in some cases, for example, there are some landscape buffers where we have a need for a variance because the buildings have a pinch point, and there's one corner that's about 1 meter away. But for the balance of the setback of the building, it either meets or exceeds the. Because there are two property owners, do you have that? Who's doing the? Okay. Do you have the subdivision there, Rosa? There we go. So there's a number of different parts. I won't need to read through them, but if you see a part 3 there, it was part 1, currently is, but the owner also owns part 2 to the right, and they're developing a high-rise plan for that site. And this little triangle fits better with that property than it does with the existing one. There's also a part 4 in the corner, a little sliver that is owned by the other property owner, and it's going to be incorporated into the plan of subdivision. So we're just adjusting the lot lines to make sure that the subdivision plan can be properly implemented. So there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of numbers, but at the end of the day, the idea is to come up with a great plan for the stacked townhouse units. And at the end of the day, nobody will notice the variances. So that's an overview. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. So, yeah, part of our, we received these packages in advance along with staff report and the application, any community correspondence, and we visit the site as best we can. So we don't come into this totally cold. It's an independent review, not a collective review. So thank you for highlighting the points in the application. Are there any questions, any members of the committee to the applicant? Anybody in the gallery wish to speak to this application? Seeing none. Yes, David?
I'd just like to talk to the planner a bit.
Through me, you can talk to anybody you want.
I get the pinch point ones, but I'm struggling with the front and rear setbacks here where we're reducing it by 2 meters on both the front and the back. It's feeling like it's going to be very close to the road, and I get it, it's not going to bother anybody on the railway side, but it's feeling, I'll say, shoehorned in here, and I appreciate it if you can help me a little.
Just before, yes, thank you. Is the applicant aware of any particular drawing in the set that you provided which would highlight the particular lots which have the front and rear setback reduced to around 2 meters? Okay, but just for the purposes of anybody else who's watching and.
And so on this one, for example, on this one, it's both on Ellis at the bottom and the railway at the top. And on the other property, it's on Abbott. So there's 3 places, I believe, where there's the reduction in either the front or the rear or the side.
Through the chair, you mentioned that the railway on one side, so you're not really asking about the rear yard so much on the railway side. You're thinking.
What I guess I'm saying is, if we were discussing 2 meters, I might not worry about it, but we're now discussing 4 meters because there's 2 meters on the back and 2 meters on the front.
So through the chair, the applicants have put this forward with, as you can see, 3 rows of buildings, in that width you're sort of talking about, with the rear yard against the rail line and the front yard against the new street. And in between those buildings, they have laneways to access, and they have some parallel parking. So everything is sort of at a minimum to fit those rows of buildings. And that's what they've come forward with. We've reviewed them against the 4 tests and found that these reductions are acceptable to staff. And there's not a lot they could really do to change this particular design to pick up those meters anywhere within the design, if that's sort of what you're wondering about, that it's, that's the reason why they're asking for it. But from our perspective, both the front and rear yard setbacks for this development block are considered to meet the 4 tests and are acceptable and supportable.
So with respect to our scope, the reason why this is one of the variances are due to the accommodation of this dense building type and the constrictions of the traffic circulation and lot locations, hence the 4 tests that would have been used to determine the city's recommendation that it could be approved by us. But of course, it's for us to determine. Is there anything else, David, that you'd, okay, great, thank you. Any other questions from any other member of the committee? So staff have outlined in their report conditions of approval for the consent and some rewording of variance 2, I believe it was, and approval of the other variants, of all the other variances. So we have that as our guideline. We have the application itself. Is any member here prepared to make a motion, and we can vote on it according to our own understanding? As Tom reaches for the button.
Since we're talking about the variances, are we going through these individually, or?
We usually, if it looks like there's going to be a contentious, so right now we're looking at the severance. There's 2 severance applications. So we could deal with those, which is just the division and reassembly of land. So that's an obvious distinction in this application, is to vote on the severances, and then we can look at the variances and talk about whether or not there's any benefit to looking at the variances independently. So are you prepared to put a motion regarding the approval of the severance?
Yeah, the comment file won't open on my computer, so I don't have it in front of me, but if I remember correctly, consent B10 had no conditions and B11 had a condition? Okay. Because the one question I had there was, is there a fee requirement for a condition in B10 like there was in B11? So again, I guess to staff, my only question is there a reason why B11 has a condition for conveyance fee and B10 does not?
Through the chair, as far as my reports are written, I believe they both have conditions, and that conditioning specifically is on both our recommendations.
Satisfied with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm prepared to put a motion. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent applications B1024 and B1124 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the technical reports, as they are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
If there's no further discussion required, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, so to the applicant, your consents have been approved unanimously. So with respect to the associated variances, is there any discussion about any one person's struggle with any of the variances that would require us to divide these up? If not, we can read them all in as a group in Tom's next motion.
Following consideration of all written oral presentations, I move that variance applications A4624, A9323, and A9423, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved, subject to all the conditions outlined in the technical report, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Now, because you're saying as they appear in the report, that would also pick up on the staff's recommendation for the rewording of variance number 2 as, yep, so,
Yeah, if you could clarify. 4624, that the approval is as per the technical report.
Oh, I thought I was doing all encompassing. Okay. So to clarify, that's A4624 is to comply with the recommendations in the technical
Yep.
report.
Okay, thank you.
Which is variance
Is-
2.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding this? No? Okay. All those in favor of the application, the variance applications as recommended by staff, as it turns out? Show of hands, those in favor? And opposed, just for clarity? No. Okay, so to the applicant, your variances have been approved as per the staff report unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for coming out on a special evening. And also, again, thank you to Charlotte and helping to work through all of these numbers and making it all make sense at the end. So thank you very much.
So that concludes the scope of this meeting. Is there any new business?
No new business.
No new business. The date of the next hearing is July 17th. Motion to adjourn from anybody? Thank you, Jamal. We are adjourned.